In today's episode, let's try and find out if One Nation, One Election is an idea that the BJP government is serious about, or is it just a gimmick that the National Party plays for its own advantage? In the past few days, we have seen that the elections in Uttar Pradesh in May 2022 have set already expectations as well as a lot of heat among political parties, especially among national parties who are vying to woo voters. Amidst this backdrop, even Prime Minister Narendra Modi has jumped into the poll fray and has announced major projects in and around Purvanchal region in Uttar Pradesh. Now, it is a known fact that terrorist strikes have shaken India and especially Jammu and Kashmir in the recent times. In the backdrop of these attacks, the BJP has been claiming that it is the success of the Modi government which is responsible for curbing these attacks. The recent terrorist strikes actually indicate that it is not the success of the Modi government, but a change of guard in Afghanistan, which is actually causing this kind of global instability. It is a known fact that Congress and the BJP blame each other whenever there are terrorist strikes in the country. Now, in the race for Uttar Pradesh, both these parties are at loggerheads to blame each other again for terrorism. While the race for Uttar Pradesh is really heating up, the BJP is trying to use the Hindutva sentiment in order to polarize these votes against terrorism. It is important to note that Uttar Pradesh is actually, or more importantly, the nucleus for the BJP across India. Therefore, by polarizing these votes and again raking up the Hindutva sentiment, it can comfortably think of winning a majority in this state. Now, it has been exactly 1 year since Prime Minister Modi has announced the idea of One Nation, One Election. Well, to be honest, the idea of One Nation, One Election is not new for India. It has been an age-old idea since 1983 when the Commission first mooted it. The concept needs to be debated mainly around two issues. One, financial costs of conducting elections, and the question of regional or small parties having a level playing field. Now, like the Modi government propagates, it's not new that India has never witnessed simultaneous polls. In fact, from the first general election in 1951-52, Indians voted both for the union and state governments. This continued right till 1967. It was after this period that the cycle of synchronized elections got disrupted, and primarily because many state governments as well as governments at the center could not complete their term of 5 years. Now, let's discuss about the cost of conducting elections. Conducting elections, assembly or parliamentary, is a huge financial cost on the state as well as the central government. But one has to remember that people's will is only expressed by exercising their right to vote in elections. Also, elections are a way to gauge public satisfaction and attitude towards the current government. Also, when conducted frequently, can result in citizens feeling empowered. The interests, priorities, and the conventions of each unit, whether it is a mandal, district, or a state, are its own and are not subordinate to those of the union government except where the constitution itself so mandates. The term of the Legislative Assembly is in no way related to the Lok Sabha elections and depends primarily on the way electoral politics plays out within that state. Many claim that the idea of simultaneous polls or elections disturbs the fundamental spirit of cooperative federalism and also treats states as subordinates. It is also believed that the current Modi government has proposed the idea in order for the center to have a greater say and greater power over states. But in reality, the constitution and the nature of our democracy is such that each unit, whether it is a mandal, district, or a state is expected to function democratically on its own by taking its own decisions, whether it is the timing of the election, the framing of laws, and or formulating its own policies in respect to subjects in the state list or the concurrent list. Now, if the government of India is really willing to reform the electoral process and the electoral system in the country, it should work in tandem with all political parties and in consultation with the Election Commission of India to initiate reforms to improve fairness and transparency in the electoral system. If one has to analyze the current way of holding elections in India, at present, elections to the state assemblies and the Lok Sabha are held separately. That is, whenever the incumbent government's 5-year term ends or whenever it is dissolved due to various other reasons, the terms of Legislative Assembly and the Lok Sabha may not match with each other. For example, Rajasthan went to polls in 2018, whereas Tamil Nadu went to polls earlier this year. Next is Uttar Pradesh, Gujarat, Uttarakhand, Goa, Manipur, Punjab, which are going to polls next year. Now that elections in the southern part of India, as well as states like Bihar, Assam, including major states like Maharashtra, West Bengal, which are not BJP ruled states, have finished their assembly election, the Modi government may not go with one election, one nation idea for now, given that next year will be crucial for the Saffron Party with Uttar Pradesh elections. Hence, it looks like BJP's focus is now on the Uttar Pradesh assembly election rather than implementing one nation, one election idea. Going by this, it is clear that the Modi government is going back and forth on this idea of simultaneous polls based on its convenience, but studies about this also indicate that simultaneous polls or synchronized polls usually benefit a national party but do not take the interests of regional or smaller parties into consideration, as well as interests of the people of these states. In the quest for achieving uniformity in the implementation of schemes, many experts believe that the idea of one nation, one election tends to sabotage the very basic principles of the democracy. Therefore, if simultaneous elections are held, will every voice from across India be heard? Will every vote matter? Will regional parties really matter? That's something we need to think about. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please subscribe to my channel. If you have any suggestions, please leave them in the comment section.